What's going on, everybody? George here, Going Bracket Racing YouTube channel. As always, I got my brother Casey with me. Casey, how's it going, brother?
So far, so good, man. Got the transmission back together with some TSR racing parts. I know you got some BRG 3D printed parts coming.
Showing up.
Champs Performance supplied me with some valve cover gaskets that I needed really bad because 7,500 RPM doesn't like those little bitty leaks. And obviously, Syntex printing can make you any shirt you want. So, what's going on, George? What'd you learn this last weekend?
Shirts, stickers, Syntex printing. I was at the track, and a lot of people definitely came up and said, "Man, I like where you got, your stickers and everything. Where'd you get them from?" So I shout out Syntex printing. So hopefully we'll see a few of the guys I met this week. Come on down your checkout lane. You know how that goes. But yeah, I had a good time. I won't go into details. We'll save that maybe for open discussion. But old I-30. And must say, I got called out pretty quickly. The old fuel Mo had the same fuel problems as he did last year, and found out that it was the fuel pump. Well, I had a spare fuel pump; it just needed to be rebuilt. And so it was leaking pretty hard out of one of the weep holes. Long story short, Eric Sandlin's riding by, longtime watcher of the Going Bracket Racing YouTube channel, and I would have to say pretty good friend at this point because he pulled up and helped me fix everything, rebuilt the fuel pump sitting right there. So hey, I know how to build a fuel pump. But in his words, you're really good with computers, but you're not a mechanic. And I said, you're right. You know how that goes. So, no, man, what we got going on today? I'm expecting quite the crowd. This is going to be a good one, Casey. What do you think?
There'll definitely be a big crowd, man, because I can tell you right now, I remember whenever I was a little kid, whenever it was maybe like, I don't know, 1990, 1995, somewhere around in there, we got the host of Inside Drag Racing on here, man. It was my favorite show whenever I was a little kid. Me and Dad tried to go home. Remember those VCRs, guys? You remember those? I don't know if you remember those anymore, but we used to try to get it to record, and every once in a while it wouldn't. So well, actually more than every once in a while. So me and Dad, as soon as we ran in the door, we'd run straight to the TV and try to see this guy on Inside Drag Racing. So we might as well introduce Mr. Bret Kepner, the historian of all that is drag racing. What's up, Bret?
See, now I thought I was going to get introduced by the son of Atch, but no.
Wasn't me this time. It was Casey's go. I can promise you, Bret. I remember you from. Was Stages across the street from Old Gateway? Was that the bar over there, right across the way from the track?
Yeah, I was going to say it wasn't across the street; it was on the track property.
Right. I can remember hearing Mr. Dirt back then. So definitely. How's it going?
Good.
That's
I keep
awesome.
waking up, so I got no complaints.
I
Great
heard.
to see the son of Atch in person, and it's great to see the son of Beckmeyer in person.
Been a little time now, huh? I know you probably remember me from being a little tyke, running around through there and
Actually, I remember both of you being incredibly young people. So, yeah, you're doing your best successfully to make me feel old.
sorry.
Oh, like I said, I keep waking up, so being old's a good thing now. You go
Right.
through that period where you don't want to be old, then you're like, oh, I'm getting old. And then you're like, hey, I keep waking up, so it's good. So,
It's not all
Gotta
that bad,
live.
is it? So always at the Going Bracket Racing YouTube channel, of course, we're focused on the sport that we both all of us love, bracket racing, drag racing being the umbrella over all of it, but class wise, I'm a bracket racer. Bret, how did you become interested in drag racing as a whole?
technically, I saw the 1966 NHRA Winter Nationals on ABC's Wide World of Sports, which I don't think you guys are old enough to remember. Uh, it was a weekly sports show that was really the only general media outlet for NHRA drag racing or anybody's drag racing for that matter in the 1960s. I didn't go to my first race until I was just before I was 12, which would have been 1970. So the television brought me into it. I then, got hooked like a marlin, like everybody else.
Yep.
And magazines, something you guys also don't know too much about, got me hooked, back when there was 24 different titles on the newsstand. And I knew pretty much by the time I was 12 that I wanted to write for one of the magazines. So from the time that I went to my first race, which was the first NHRA Summer Nationals, which was held at York, Pennsylvania in 1970, until I actually started working in the business in 1976. I knew what I wanted to do. It wasn't an accident.
Definitely.
So, Bret, this is obviously we know you're like the ultimate historian as far as drag racing goes. And what I wanted to ask you is, can you tell us a little bit about the beginnings of bracket racing as a whole? Like, how did bracket racing come to be? Was this just something that NHRA said, now we're going to have a class doing this, or is this something that tracks came up with on their own?
Why did you immediately say, is this something NHRA said? Do you have any idea that
NHRA, we could go down the road. I know a little bit as well. You were around whenever I was little.
I did NHRA's television shows for 17 years, but the NHRA has a track record of taking ideas that have been tried and proved successful into its full.
Uh-oh. Might have lost.
Let's see.
I'm still here.
Okay.
He's there.
Yeah,
there he is. There you
go.
go. Yep.
Got you back. So anyway, we heard tried and proved successful.
Yep.
Yeah. Pro Stock Eliminator, Funny Car Eliminator, the 90 class, Sportsman, Top Dragster, Super Street, for that matter. None of those were created by the National Hobart Association. They were all created by other associations and adopted by the NHRA once they were approved to be moneymakers. Bracket racing had nothing whatsoever to do with the NHRA other than the fact that it was a way out of the NHRA. Now, you asked me a
connection. Yep, it's connected.
Got you back again.
Yep. It's connection. It's a connection thing. It's going in, it's going out a little bit. No big deal. We got you back. But bracket racing.
What's the last thing?
Bracket racing.
What was the last?
Yep, bracket racing being the way out of NHRA was where you were. Okay. Yep.
I said after that we have a problem. You only have a 1 hour show. So I'll give you the shortest possible version of this.
Mm-hmm.
Bracket racing is a completely different sport than drag racing. It looks the same, but it has none of the actual objectives or parameters of drag racing. We all know that. But it started with regular drag racing. In the late 1950s, everything was class racing. You're familiar with NHRA class racing now in stock and super stock eliminator at certain national events, at certain national opens, at certain divisional meets. And that's when two cars of the same class race heads up to the finish line. First one there wins. But they've got to be in the same class. Back in the 50s and 60s, the objective of most drag racers was to win class. As you know, once you win class now at an NHRA national event, you move to the eliminator. Let's say stock eliminator. You move from
internet. Lose him again, didn't we?
I think so.
Yeah, it's internet for sure. I know the weather's been a little tricky here lately too, so. Bret, we still got you? I'm gonna cut us back to two main for a second, Casey. Yeah, I think he's having just a little bit of internet issues thus far, guys. He froze, and I'm pretty sure it's a Wi-Fi thing there. Once we get that solved, we'll bring him right back on the screen. But so far, I'm going to tell you what, just like all 22 on Facebook and however many are on YouTube, Casey, I am all the way in, like all the way in with what's going on, especially the comment of bracket racing being a way out of the NHRA. What do you think about that, Casey?
Exactly, man. The problem was with NHRA back in the day was the fact that that was the only major thing there was to do. That was, I mean, there was AHRA, there was IHRA back in the day, and back in the day, believe it or not, that was just as big as NHRA, and then various aspects kind of brought that downhill and kind of pushed everything else out. But that's why we wanted to have Bret on, kind of tell us how that kind of came about and what caused that type of thing to happen. Because IHRA's had several resurgences. AHRA is kind of trying to come back, but hasn't necessarily come back with a vengeance like it was back in the day. I'm pretty sure Don Garlitz actually might have set some records in AHRA that actually weren't recognized by NHRA. Maybe like, I don't know if it was 250 or something like that. But yeah, man, it was a lot of really interesting history there that that happened back in the day.
Gotcha. I'm gonna call him back right now while we're sitting here, and definitely, guys, if we run into a situation where we can't get Bret back, we'll definitely bring him back because this is gonna be a good one. Hang in there, guys. We're gonna keep moving along. I guess we might as well in the interim talk about this weekend. Talk about you getting your transmission finished up. We could talk about gas prices if y'all want to, and maybe methanol prices going up a little bit, I hear. So I don't know, Casey. What do you think, man? What about that transmission you rebuilt?
Well, I guess it works. I finally started it up last night. It goes forwards and it goes backwards, and the trans brake holds. So I hope that means that everything's good to go. I got to get it on the ground, actually let it sit level, make sure the transmission fluid's right in it. But man, I can tell you right now, those transmissions are complicated. It's pretty tough to. There's a lot going on in one little bitty thing. Like, I almost feel like an engine is easier to fix than, or to rebuild per se, than a transmission.
Gotcha.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot going on there. Maybe it's something more along the lines of the fact that I've seen that happen so many times, and I haven't necessarily seen a transmission apart to that extent or paid attention, more than likely is the most likely scenario.
Right.
Honestly, the thing that I struggled with the most was the parking ball spring, trying to figure out which direction does this go and how does it end up pressing against the case to take park out. And I was looking at it backwards. So that was the major thing. Once I got that figured out, I was good to go.
Gotcha. Well, that's pretty cool, definitely, man. So definitely, you've got everything running, and then what happens to the weather in your neck of the woods? Because I'm going to be honest with you, here in Texas, I go outside to take my son. My father-in-law's here to get him to take him over for daycare for the day, and I think it was sleeting outside. Mind you, all weekend we were short sleeves. I could have been in shorts. It was perfect for drag racing at I-30. Well, give it about 15 more minutes, and I must tell you that it was thundering and lightning outside. So I don't know what's really going on in the state of Texas right now. The reason why I see sleet, lightning bolts, and I hear thunder all in the same day. But it's been a pretty interesting day, to say the least. So that's just all I have to say about that. But what I'm going to do real quick, guys, is we're going to give a good shout out to our friends over at TSR Racing Products. Hang in there, and we'll be right back with more Going Bracket Racing. Thank you.
TSR Racing Products has everything you need to make your Power Glide Turbo 350, Turbo 400, and 727 transmissions the best they can be on the street or at the track. With exceptional products, customer service, and over 30 years of experience, TSR Racing Products is always available to help their customers with any of their transmission needs. In-house machining ensures you only receive the best products from TSR Racing. Visit TSR Racing Products at tsr-racing.com or give them a call at 800-394-5889.
All right, we're back at Going Bracket Racing. Thank you over to TSR. You guys are awesome. Everything you do, guys, if you need anything for those transmissions, those parts, whatever you need to do to get yourself going. Maybe you're upgrading your product this year. Maybe you just need something new to go behind it because you might have trashed something like Casey did. Who knows, right? TSR, those guys over there, there's a very good tech line that they have. They can walk you through just about whatever you need. Give them a call. Let them get a shot at taking care of you for sure. So, no, Casey. So I heard through the grapevine methanol might go up a little bit more. Have you been hearing anything out in your neck of the woods?
Well, I haven't actually been. Well, I've been to the track once, destroyed a transmission. Haven't been to the track since there's been a reasonable amount of people. But I would assume that it probably will. It's hard to say. The thing I want to talk about is why, what's going to happen with these fuel prices going up as much as they have with the traveling racers and these traveling events. I mean, last week we were talking about this. Well, diesel last week was like, I think 429, something like that. But I just looked at it yesterday because I had to go get some grade 8 bolts yesterday. So I went up to the hardware store and it said 509. So 509 is not 429. Like 429, you're sitting here like, man, that's pretty high, but it's okay. Once you start getting in the fives, man, that's a lot, especially when you're talking a lot of these guys have RVs and show haulers to get 3 or 5 miles to count.
Not to mention that a lot of people are on their way as we speak to Bradenton, Florida, to get ready to kick off with the SFG race of the first race of the year. And so I know I've scrolled through Facebook at least one time and seen where I believe it was Brandon Taylor, and he's got a comment and it says $700 to fill up my RV.
Mm-hmm.
Ouch. That relevant, right? Ouch. But on top of that, he said another $700 to fill up to get his racing fuel.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even paid entry fees yet.
Exactly.
So I don't know. I feel his pain, and it ain't mine. Do you know what I mean? That's just the best way I can say it. I mean, fuel is just on the rise. And again, this is why we've been here at the Going Bracket Racing YouTube channel. I'm not going to sit here and say we were experts, Casey, and we knew that gas was going to go just like ape crap to keep it rated PG. I'm pretty sure that we're not that. But we've forecasted all winter series that the local track would be on the rise. I'm going to stick to it. I believe in California they're saying there's a chance that fuel will be $9 a gallon, maybe even 10 in California. Pretty sure we're going to be local track racing. What do you think, man?
Definitely. The hardest thing about it is whenever you think about the fact that, for example, there's a track that's roughly 100 miles from me. This time last summer, it would have taken me round trip about roughly $75 in diesel to get there and back. Okay. This year, it's going to take me a little over 100 in diesel to get there and back. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot of money because it's only 100 miles. You know, $25, is that going to keep you from going racing? Probably not. But whenever you're talking about going 1,000 miles or something like that, now you're multiplying that by 10. That's $250 more. So now maybe it doesn't stop you from going racing, but maybe it does stop you from double enter, which means half of the cars aren't going to be there anymore. Now, if we can get Bret back on here, this is one of the questions I wanted to ask him, which is we went through this in 2008.
Right.
And what it showed in 2008 was if people want to race, they're going to race. Is that still how people feel today?
Well, I mean, we're getting ready to find out as we're still trying to get Bret back on here, guys. Hang with us. If we don't, we will reschedule it because you all know this is going to be a great one. So what we'll do is for now, we'll turn it into an open discussion. You know, I see some guys in the chat right now. Anthony Evans, he's saying he secured 8 drums last week at $220 per. You probably did really good, and if you wanted to, you might even make a little bit of a profit if you sell 1 or 2 of those. So you did pretty good there, man. Kevin Grinder said it was 100. Sunoco was 195. And I think it's going to go up. So Anthony Evans is saying 260 in Montgomery for methanol prices. So definitely something to keep our eyes on. But back to your question, Casey, about the double entries and the lack of entries into the cars because not everybody can really afford, number one, $700 for racing gasoline. Hopefully everybody's ready to call Ken Jones Performance and just switch it on over to alcohol, because that's probably what needs to happen anyway. You can probably race close to all year with that one barrel of fuel that you just had to spend there. So, what do you? I definitely think that's gonna not only will it bring down the car count, that's gonna bring down the purse. Does that mean that the entry fee is gonna come down? I can't really answer that question. You know what I mean?
Well, here's the thing though. That's not necessarily true because
Okay.
and the reason I'm saying that is it may not necessarily bring down the purse because maybe that purse just comes to your local area. So maybe you just don't have to travel that far. Maybe you're just going down the road. Maybe in your case, you're just going down to XRP. Maybe you're not going to Ohio or something like that. Maybe people figure out that, for example, in North Carolina, why do you think Loose Rocker is only at Piedmont? It's because there's tons of racers in North Carolina. You don't really need, if you held a big race in North Carolina every single weekend, you'd sell just as many things as if you had it anywhere else because all the racers are here. And there's a lot of people out here that figure if I can save the money on fuel, I'll just go double it down the road.
Right.
You know, I'll just pay the money towards my entry fee down the road. So now they just double entered where they would have maybe single entered elsewhere. So you just basically need to focus, in my opinion, this year, where are the racers? Because the promoter doesn't need XYZ track to put on this show. They need a track to put on this show because the money's already in their pocket, in theory.
I guess that's a true statement as well. And you mentioned XRP, and right before I get off into the Hamlin race real quick to plug it in real fast, that's going to be one heck of a race, by the way, the 6-shooter. We watched Kyle Riley coin the thought process of showing up to your local tracks and hosting races. Was he really onto something with that thought process? It's something I really think is relevant right now, to where we saw the race in Muncie. It was going to be a no-split national. I'm pretty sure that was going to sell out. But those types of races, like you're saying, Casey, the racers who are 3 hours away, it's a little bit easier to drive 3 hours away on one tank of diesel than it is to drive, what's Bradenton from Illinois? 18 hours? There's people who drive that. My parents drive that, for crying out loud.
12 hours south of me is the major problem. Is like that's the major problem with everything, is that it's even that far from me. I'm actually getting ready to call Bret here one more time here real quick, see if this happens.
No worries, go for it. So definitely, guys, I know that Monday Morning Racer, I see you out there, and I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to make Funny Car Chaos, but I'm definitely going to make it high on my priority list of things to do. I definitely think that would be really, really fun to come to. Not to mention, I have a lot of newbies to the sport of drag racing as a whole looking for somewhere to, quote unquote, let's just keep it rated PG. Have a race for their first time. Let's do that. What better way to introduce them to drag racing and heads up funny car racing than to bring them to Funny Car Chaos, where there's going to be a load of very fast cars. So definitely looking forward to putting that on the top of my list there. Bird, man, I hear you over there saying, keep in mind, if you run alcohol, you will change the engine oil more often. Yeah, I hear you, man. Maybe that does even out. I really haven't looked. I run Schaefer's oil. I don't know what it costs right now for a case of that stuff. But in the long run, is it going to even out to that $700 a barrel for your racing gasoline? I really think I'm going to be in the head of the game with my alcohol still when it comes to changing my oil every 20 runs maximum, I'm pretty sure. So, Casey, coming on back into the show.
Who do we got in the show? We talking about me or we talking about Bret?
Yeah, I hear you. I see you back in here. I had it on the good old single display where it was just me up there for a second while you made a call out. I can't see if he answered that or not. Yeah, he's here. He comes. Here he comes.
All right,
bring him on back in there. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Kepner. We got you.
Well, I just wanted to see.
Hey, you had me going. You had me going. I ain't gonna lie about that. Hey, I can tell you exactly where we were. You said that bracket racing was the escape from NHRA, and you got my mind with that one already. My wheels are turning a million miles a
All
minute.
right.
Yep.
Now I have to make it the really quick version.
It's okay.
The electronic handicapper wasn't designed or sold until 1964. So, that's what allows one side of the Christmas tree to come down. The Christmas tree as we know it today wasn't designed and sold until 1963. A lot of tracks used instant green or stoplight starting systems, but prior to 1963. But the tree and the handicapper as we know it did not start until 63 and 64. So when I say bracket racing started in 1959, you're both going to go, Here's the deal. Back when class racing was all there was. Like I said, it was the objective for you to take your 56 Ford with a 283 Chevy in it out to the racetrack and win C gas, which was a popular class back then. It got down to the point very quickly in the first 10 years of what many people considered the organized sport that you, me, Edge, Casey, anybody else couldn't be competitive against Joe Blow who could go a second quicker. And all of a sudden, drag racing started to suck because all you could do is go out there, get your head kicked in every week and, either spend more money or cheat or do whatever it took to try and be competitive. So tracks started doing what they called bracket racing. There was several different ones that started at about the same time at different tracks around the country. What bracket racing originally was what we now call index racing. It was a series of 1 second brackets, 9 to 10 seconds, 10 to 11 seconds, 11 to 12 seconds, 12 to 13, 14, 15, 16, on down the line. The objective was let's use the 12-second class for an example. All the 12-second cars, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can hear you.
I see Atch, the son of Atch over there going, trying to make sure everything's working. Let's use the 12-second class as an example. All the 12-second cars ran together in one class. The objective, get to the finish line first and win. But if you went quicker than 12 seconds flat, you broke out of that bracket into the 11-second bracket and were disqualified. See where all this comes in?
Yep.
Right.
That's where the terminology, that's where the sport, the type of racing it was, all comes into play. The term dial-in means nothing to anybody except the people who know what dial-in means. It's a foreign term to everybody. It was created when, again, the handicapper, the electronic handicapper that allowed one side of the tree to start before the other side of the tree, first came into being, and the numbers, instead of punched in or keyed in on a computer keyboard, were dialed in on a thumb wheel.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's where the term dial-in comes from. So dial-ins later became, or let me rephrase that, dial-ins allowed the form of bracket racing called dial your own. Before, you were stuck on that index on a heads-up start. But when the handicapper came into play, we could give an 11-second car a 1-second head start over a 12-second car, or an 11:01 against a 12:03, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what it became, dial your own handicap bracket racing. You're still racing in a bracket, but the bracket is created by you. If you're dialed in at 12:03, then you're dialed in a bracket of 12:03 to infinity. And if you go 12:02, you broke out of that bracket.
Awesome.
That's how bracket racing.
I mean, that makes sense, doesn't it? Doesn't it, though,
But the
Casey?
key, to answer your question of why it started, the key is so Joe Blow could be competitive. You didn't have to go spend any more than you wanted to spend. And bracket racing at first was looked upon as, you're a bunch of losers, here's your special class, and it didn't pay but a tenth of what class racing paid.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, class racing, on a local level, let's say, again, we'll use the example of the guy with the 56 Ford with the C Chevrolet. the Chevy powered C gas motor. He may have to run 4 or 5 or 6 cars in his class to win the class trophy on a regular weekly basis. Bracket racers, it wasn't unusual to have a dozen cars in the class because there were a dozen people that couldn't catch Joe Blow, who was the killer C gas car. So it was a much tougher form of racing, but it's always important to remember that it's not drag racing. It's not first one to the finish line wins at all costs. It's as the three of us know, and hopefully a lot of the viewers know, bracket racing is a really stupid concept. You get a handicap, but you got to win by the smallest margin possible.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy.
Right. So maybe you can answer this question too, because right now in our sport of bracket racing, there are a lot of big money bracket races. I mean, huge. Do you have an idea of when that was implemented? Kind of when it came about? I mean, why is the Moroso 5K, the 5-day, still considered the beginning of major big money bracket racing?
Well, it's not. It's not even close. The Moroso 5-day was the first of the 5-day races. The Moroso 5-day, not to get off the subject here, the Moroso 5-day started out as a party and a vacation. It was held in late November in southern Florida, where, the coldest, I announced the race for years. The coldest it ever got, was 49 degrees once, that kind of thing. It's in West Palm Beach, for God's sakes. It's not too far from the Keys. And over Thanksgiving or late November, it became a 5-day vacation to go race every single day. And as you know, Dick Moroso had a pre-race party, a party every night, and thank God it's over party. It was just nonstop drink and eat fest along with racing, which was $5,000 a day. And in the 1970s and 80s, that was a serious amount of money. The first $5,000 race was held at Rockford, Illinois in 1975, which is now Byron Dragway. That was called the Cash Nationals. When I managed St. Louis International Raceway, we had a $5,000 race at Gateway in 1981, which was pretty unheard of. You got 3 guesses of who won it.
Eddie Bastianelli?
No.
Alan Mollett.
It's Danny Bastianelli. Alan Mollett wasn't even born yet.
Yeah. Oops.
His dad raced in the event, though, Burnell.
Oh, really?
Al Mollett was a national event winning drag racer. You may not know that. Go ahead.
Right.
You get one more chance.
Man, what was this decade again?
What's Lynn Smalley's dad's name?
Edmund Richardson.
John Smalley.
Mr. Smalley. The answer is Bill Coolman.
Huh.
No way.
The pro mod racer.
Huh.
He had a rear engine Spitzer dragster, and he won the first $5,000 race at St. Louis. So anyway, the first $1,000 bracket races started in the late 60s. And when you convert that to modern day dollars, it's, $2,000-$3,000. So those are big races. A lot of people don't realize, but St. Louis was in the middle of a money war in 1976 and 1977 with Peavey, and to an extent MAR, but MAR was always kind of a low dollar track. The old I-55 dragway in Peavey and St. Louis International Raceway, which, by the way, is a completely different drag strip than Gateway. It's not the old track running in the opposite direction. They're 2 completely different tracks on 2 completely different pieces of property. Anyway, 1976, top eliminator, which was 0 to 11.99 bracket class, was paying $300 to win at both tracks, and they got in a little bit of a war. And by in the middle of 77, it went to $750 a week at each track. That's the equivalent of maybe $3,000 a week here now. As late as 79, they were paying $1,000 a month, once a month, and $750 the rest of the weeks. So St. Louis had a very, very, very high-paying bracket scene back in the early days. Sorry, I got way off track. Go ahead.
No, actually, that was excellent. That was excellent.
Oh. And that was what I always wondered was I've talked to my dad about this for years and years and years, I always wondered why there were so many racers around that Midwest area, because obviously I'm 35, so I'm old enough to still remember Super Mega Bucks and stuff like that, where it's like Gateway was on